You are live. Sweet. Let me change my screen so we're not just staring at our faces. But we got some interesting news back after the last video, obviously talking about the 20, what was it, 13 Ironman Jambalaya.
Yeah, yeah,
Sold
yeah.
for $3,500
Right.
when, and then that Thor that was for sale at the same time, arguably same tier as Iron Man. Their price points typically the same, except for the past few months we've seen one or two people really pushing the value or price points of Iron Man cards. But that Thor sold for just over $1,000. So you would
Yeah, yeah.
expect that Iron Man to go for about the same, probably 1,100, maybe 1,200. But for some reason, we've got at least two hardcore Iron Man collectors that seemingly know their stuff until maybe seeing this sale here, which I will share my screen and we'll go window. No, we'll go entire screen. Share. Boom. This has got to be the most expensive Iron Man card of all time.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be one of the more. This is gonna be one of the higher Marvel cards of all time too, as well.
True.
Not maybe not top. I mean, probably like back in the top five if that's the case. But if you guys missed the last video that we did on this subject here, there is a somewhat known Iron Man collector overseas in China who's been picking up a lot of this stuff. That's where we were able to kind of deduce some of these more recent sales that we've been seeing. There was a $10,000 Amber Crystals from Marvel Platinum. There was some other like just cards that you wouldn't expect to go for the prices that they have. I have some ties to some people over there who had told me that there's a guy who's kind of doing a similar thing to what I'm doing, as far as like picking up, a lot of the older stuff, kind of like going through making like a master collection of Iron Man stuff. So I would assume that this person is this. I would assume that the person that bought this is either maybe Steve Aoki or that specific collector, given the fact that he's dropped high value amounts on cards that normally wouldn't see those sort of prices. So. Oh yeah, it says all time highest public sale for any Iron Man card at the bottom there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go. So yeah, I mean, I would assume this probably is going to that collector who has
Yeah.
probably just kind of fu money. Uh, we shared a little screenshot that I have where that specific collector, the only known surfacing image that guy had, he shared something on a social media site that showed that he had all three Marvel Platinum 101s for Iron Man. For one of the, I guess Iron Man has a couple cards actually. I know Mike Diaz has one of like the high series cards or whatever, but the one that he was collecting, he has all three. He had all three of the or all the Amber Crystal cover variant, all that stuff too. So obviously he would have had to drop high dollar amounts on those to be able to pick up all three of those. So, and it correlated with the sale of the Amber Crystal. It was the same Iron Man card version of the Amber Crystal. So again, probably the same guy, probably somebody who just has an astronomical amount of money, and we won't see this sort of sale very often in our hobby. This will probably be one of the biggest ones we see for quite some time. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You raise up a few good points that beg a couple of questions. So, is this the highest priced Topps Chrome Marvel card Superfractor that we see, or are people going to look at this and think that this sets some sort of precedent? And now, when they have a character that is equal in tier to Iron Man, are they going to try to price it for 50K?
Well,
Because this, go ahead.
here's the it's an interesting spot about that, right? We have the Spider-Man is on eBay for like it's an astronomical amount of money. I think it's like $4 million they're asking or something like that. Which that would be the pinnacle of that set, right? Like that's probably the
Yeah.
number one, and then you have Wolverine would be shortly behind that. Venom. I mean, maybe arguably Iron Man now, given that we have this guy that exists. But
Yeah.
here's the problem: is like Steve Aoki, who is our pinnacle guy of as far as like pumping money into our hobby more so than anybody else. Like he has ripped several cases of this stuff. I know he paid he overpaid for some of the cards in the very beginning that were some of your like out of 50 Wolverines, things like that, that were getting into the thousands of dollars whenever the product first came out, which those cards won't see that now, considering he's gotten what he needs from it or whatever. But
Yeah.
to answer your question directly, is I mean, I've not seen any evidence of the Wolverine yet. I mean, if Wolverine gets pulled, I would assume that Steve Aoki will pay this probably plus it would probably pay a bit more than this even for that card, considering he has a history of buying the high end Wolverine cards. Like he's kind of the guy who has the most of those in his collection. So I think that given the fact that that information is kind of public or whatever, there could be the potential for a Wolverine to clear this amount of this card.
Yeah, I can see that as well, right? I can kind of see Marvel cards going one of two ways. Either people, and I think that's why it's so important to have an understanding on how to come up with value of Marvel cards and what are the things to consider when you're assigning value to Marvel cards. Because if we see this precedent continue, Iron Man traditionally has been maybe, well, certainly a top 10, probably a top 7 character in terms of value. Now, all of a sudden, Iron Man, because of this one collector
Yeah.
who must have a counterpart somewhere bidding him up,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of a
Or it could have
sudden,
just been simply Steve Aoki, right? Like if he wanted this
it could
card,
have
for
been.
example, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Only
But
so many
all of a
people that would
sudden,
go.
over the past 6 months, we're seeing this new Iron Man precedent set where he is increasing in value and arguably demanding, Iron Man is demanding the most value for cards over Spider Man, over Wolverine, over Venom, which shouldn't be the case. So we either see one of two things happen, I think. Either people look at these sales and then the price of one of ones increases drastically, or you just have these one-offs where for some reason this guy that's really gung-ho about Iron Man just pays stupid prices for Iron Man cards. And then we have kind of two circles of collectors. We have the mega rich who can throw money at the wall like 50K, not
Yeah.
matter, don't not care. And then maybe the out of fives, out of tens, everything else is left for the quote unquote normal, everyday,
Right.
standard collector. But at that point, we have two different atmospheres because traditionally, if I'm assigning value to cards, I'm going to look at what the one of one goes for. And from there, that's a data point that allows me to recognize what the out of five is going for or should go for, what
Yeah.
the out of 10 is going for. But we can't, in good conscience, in being honest with ourselves, look at a sale like this and then work backwards and say, because this Iron Man 101 went for 51,000, then my out of 10 is going to be worth 25,000.
Right.
It's just
Right.
two completely different worlds.
Yeah,
Um,
correct. Yeah, and you have to be inept enough to be able to realize that as well, right? Like if you're a person who
mhm.
pulls an of 5 Iron Man from this Topps Chrome, you got to be like aware of like what's going on or whatever, right? And so like if you're not someone who's like spending a lot of time in the hobby and like investigating this sort of stuff or whatever, you're going to be like really, really like, you could be set up for like, oh man, this one of one sold for $51,000. This card's got to be worth like 25, like you're saying or whatever, right? And then like the hard reality of that is that you're just simply never going to see it unless somehow you probably find the guy who bought it. You know what I'm saying? But then even then, he probably would wait it out because there's more than five or more
Yeah.
than one. Excuse me. There's five of them, right? So like somebody is bound to pull one and then ask a reasonable price. You'd have to have all five people with all five copies of it sitting there saying like I'm not taking less than 25,000 for it, for it to be a thing, and that's just not going to happen either. So
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah, it's a
Do you
weird
think,
spot.
do
So
you think these types of sales, does this ultimately drive the market for Marvel cards? Does this ultimately drive an increase in value across the board for Marvel cards, or is this really just an outlier that needs to be thrown out and doesn't really have impact on the growth from a value perspective?
I think man, so that's a great question. I think anytime you see a sale like this, it's a good thing, just in the sense of like you have people that don't even know about Marvel cards or know that much about them, right? And then Golden shares this on their Instagram or whatever and stuff like that. It creates exposure every time, no matter what, right? It creates dang, that's like that's crazy value for that card or whatever and stuff like that, and like obviously I think all of us ultimately would hope that Marvel cards became even more mainstream or became even more popular or whatever, right? Because then in theory, all of us that have collected all it would elevate the value of all of our cards, right? In theory, like that
Mhm.
would be the ultimate scenario, yes, there's two sides to that where you would get less access to stuff, right? There'd be some of us like myself that try to rainbow everything and whatnot that wouldn't have access to certain cards, or would make it that much more unachievable and stuff like that. But I think ultimately that would be good. If the Marvel card hobby grew even bigger, it would be better for all of us. But from people that are inside the hobby, like you said, you gotta understand that this is not like a normal thing that we're going to see consistently or whatever and stuff, and you just got to be safe with that.
Hmm.
Basically, the long story short, it has pros and cons, right? A sale like this, right? There's good things and bad things that can come from it or whatever, right? And then
Yeah.
we're at a place probably where more bad things come from it, just because the community is so small right now, whereas if it was a bit bigger, this would be a phenomenal thing probably. So
Yeah, great point. This actually reminds me of a parallel that we saw. So this is before I started collecting cards. For years, I would watch card breaks and things like that because I thought they
yeah,
were just fun to watch. So I started off with watching sports card breaks because there's some big money cards and it's cool to see people hit those big money cards. I remember, I think it was back in 2020, COVID era, there was a Luka Doncic like RPA that sold for like $3 million.
yeah, yeah,
Then Luca came out of nowhere.
yeah,
Like I can't remember like who the character or players were that pulled the most premium or highest value, but
yeah,
like
yeah,
Michael
yeah.
Jordan's always up there. Kobe Bryant,
Hmm.
LeBron James, right? They're traditionally up until that point in 2020, the ones whose cards pulled the highest values. Now all of a sudden, randomly, this Luca card sells for
Yeah, yeah.
$3 million, and everyone's going, what the heck is going on? He's outselling LeBron. He's outselling Kobe. He's outselling Michael. And people didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
to kind of your point, that set a new precedence. And I think that the sports card collecting world was large enough to where kind of the opposite thing happened in that world that's going to happen in Marvel cards, I think. But that set a new precedence. And now it just automatically increased the value of all of these other cards.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
when we really started to see the card market boom as a whole take off,
yeah,
which
yeah,
ultimately
yeah,
dripped down into Marvel cards because people were looking at, oh, there's a $3 million Luca card. Now all of a sudden, some of the cards I have are worth way much more. Now all of a
yeah,
sudden, let me dabble into some other card areas that have these same inserts like PMGs. And then we
mhm,
saw the value of those increase as well, ultimately all stemming from this insane Luca card sale.
yeah,
And we're still seeing the effects of that. I mean, sports cards are still pulling huge money, obviously less than back in 2020, 2021. But that I think is part of the catalyst that set off the Marvel card explosion that you saw for a couple of years. And now we've kind of seemingly come to the other side of that. And now I think Marvel cards are really finding their base, if you will, and
yeah,
starting to
yeah,
grow from there. But I'm curious if this is going to have that resounding effect where we feel the echoes of this sale. I don't think we will though. I think that the community
yeah,
there's not enough people collecting Marvel cards. I went to a show today. It's a super small show at a mall that there was I don't know 50 tables, 75 tables, zero Marvel cards.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you would think, lots of Pokemon, even some One Piece, which is interesting because that was introduced like a year ago, 2 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
Still
yeah,
no Marvel cards though, not a
yeah,
single Marvel
yeah,
card. So I think that it's still just so niche that like ultimately a sale like this probably doesn't grow the value of everyone else's cards in maybe a way that we would hope. But I think the more big time collectors they get in and are able to throw crazy money like this at a brand new one of one for a character that's maybe a top 7 character. I mean, ultimately that's good, but ultimately, I mean, like you said, there's pros and cons.
yeah, yeah,
Because now all of a sudden these one of ones are out of reach. But a rising tide floats all boats. So you would think that this would you need these type of sales to ultimately see an increase in the value of other cards. And it starts with
yeah,
sales like this. But I think it's going to take consistency in seeing cards bring these values before it has those echoes for a lot of other cards.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we've been through enough, I think, as a Marvel card, I mean, other people may have a different perspective on this than I do, but in my experience, like we've had an I sometimes like worry, or I don't want to say worry, but I sometimes think like I feel like Marvel cards have been out enough, and I think that like especially with the way, for example, X-Men 97 has come out. Everyone seems to be seemingly disappointed with the way that set has been done. There's nothing really special about it. I think that there was a similar reaction to the Topps Marvel Chrome. I know there's a few more people liked that set than opposed to the X Men '97. I'm seeing pretty much across the board everybody's just dogging X Men '97, but um, like I think that although there was a ton of issues that Upper Deck has, and that's an own separate conversation and stuff like that, their creativity for inserts was really good. I do
Mhm.
believe that, right? I do think the idea of masterpieces being like original art, things like that, like that's what like what drove Marvel, what drove comics and stuff like that was the artwork was 1A, and then the storytelling was like 1D maybe comparatively to those things, right? But like the artwork is what like grabbed your attention, it's what draws you in, it's what keeps you interested in it and things like that. You can see that with the way that original art sells and stuff like that, right? Whereas you need to be doing something with these cards like that's really really different than the history has shown for them, for us to be able to get to a place where it could become as mainstream as something like a sports card, right? Like the only person that has anywhere close to a sports card level outreach is Justin Spidey Hits. Like those, if you were to look at like follower counts for even like lower tier sports guys, like they're clearing Justin's numbers. You know what I mean? So it's like there's not enough. It may always just be this niche. That's
Yeah.
that's the part that some people may have to like accept, or like um, understand. Obviously, I would hope that at some point in time, or there may be a time where things get bigger and things really blow up and blossom out and stuff like that. But like, I think that if that was going to happen, that would have happened during that peak during COVID and stuff like that. Like the fact that we dropped back down as far as we have from that period of time is like indicative that like it didn't stick, right? Like that's clear that it didn't have the cultural impact or whatever you want to call it for all those cards to become super mainstream and stuff like that. And it be, like you're saying, like One Piece, those cards are like, those are showing up at those shows and stuff like that. Like those cards, the Dragon Ball Z cards, all that stuff, like it does pretty well. I mean, I'm not dove enough into it to be able to say whether or not, it's better than Marvel cards and stuff like that. But like it very well could be. And it's unfortunate that it's so new that it clears, our side of the hobby already. But, that very well may be the case. Obviously, Pokemon has a much better lineage history and stuff like that. It's probably comparable to sports cards, to be fair, even though I think sports cards would be just a bit higher and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what would need to happen for us to get to a point where we could have sales like this regularly on these cards.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if that ever will be a possibility. You know,
Yeah.
um, it's
I
weird. Like, you know what really, people always say, right? This is something that I think about a lot. People always say that, if we could just get the sports card side involved, or like get them into it and things like that, right? That's kind of like the angle that everybody always makes that argument for. That's why they do the parallels the same way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It was like what you really need to, or the angle that I think would create the most growth is if you could get the guys who primarily just do comics involved in it, right? If you angled it more towards that direction, because it's more likely that those people would be interested in it, right, than it would be sports cards people. I mean, I understand the argument both ways, but it's like if somehow you could get these old heads that like have these like super big collections and stuff like that that have all the it's like like comics still come out, right? But like we're at a point right now where like all the artwork is becoming digital. We're having this like they're like all the OA, if you will, that exist is going to be, we're getting to a point where that's only going to be the amount that exists, period, moving forward, right? Because everything's moving to digital and stuff like that. Whereas if you could somehow tap into that market, or tap into like the younger generations, which I feel is smaller nowadays, right? That are interested in the comics and stuff like that, or even just the people that like the movies. I know
Mhm.
that they tried to do it with the MCU sets and stuff like that, but like I don't know if the marketing is where it needs to be for this niche kind of part of the hobby to grow. I don't know what the answer is, but I've often thought like if we could somehow get the people that are like so involved in comics invested in this stuff, then it could really
Yeah.
get some traction there maybe, but I don't know.
I think that's the most obvious and easiest avenue to expand into to grow Marvel cards. And it kind of blows my mind that there is a very distinct separation between comic books and Marvel cards. You'd think you'd see more of a crossover in terms of interest. I have, through my interest in cards, started to become interested in original art and
Yeah.
comics. So I'll go to some comic shops just to like look around, see what's there. I think it's cool looking at the old Silver Age and Bronze Age or Golden Age. I don't even know the ages, but the older
Yeah.
books, you know what I mean? Just like to find them, to see them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every time I ask, the shop owner or people there, like, hey, do you have Marvel cards or are you interested in Marvel cards? And every single time they're like, no, I
Yeah.
have
No.
no interest.
Yeah.
And like, to me, I think that again, it's the lowest hanging fruit to expand the market. You would think that as a comic book collector, most comic book collectors put their comic books into a slab, first of all, and then you can
Mhm.
just see the cover. So, like, wouldn't it be a cool way to enjoy the interior of the book by having some interior image cards surrounding your favorite books, for
Bro,
example?
let me tell you, that is such a good concept. I'm working on a project right now, dude, where I have like some big 9.8 books. Like I have like Amazing Spider-Man 229, I've got Amazing Adventure 16, and I am collecting the cuts, and I'm gonna slab those cuts up, and then I'm gonna surround the book with those cuts in a giant frame whenever it's done. That's such a good concept of like where you're going with that too. Like, yeah, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, like I think that just seems natural and would be awesome. And now you can enjoy more images, you can enjoy more of the book. You're not limited to just seeing the cover of
Yeah.
everything. I think, or I have no idea, so this is just me spitballing here. I think the avenue in comic books goes like this. The interest stems from a childhood connection, which becomes an adult interest. To now you have the money to buy the books you liked as a child. You buy the books you liked as a child, and as you get more involved in comic books, you naturally progress to the original art side as
Yes.
opposed
Yeah.
to the comic card side. And so I think that these comic book collectors are looking at um, the Marvel cards in the same way that a lot of Marvel card collectors, or excuse me, in the same way that a lot of comic book collectors look at comic cuts. They think, why would we pay X amount? You could pay $200 for a really cool comic cut, but you could buy the actual comic for that same price.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they
That's
think, why
fair.
would
Yeah.
we do that? And I think they're also thinking I could buy the original art of a lot of these cards for 600, 1,000, $2,000. Why would I spend $1,000 for a card out of 10? And so I
Yeah.
think there's
Yeah.
just this disconnect in thinking, which makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense. Like the market is what it is. At this point, the market is identified. People decided to place value on these cards.
Well, it's the
People
same
decide,
argument for like card art, right? It's like why would you
yeah,
buy the one of one if you can buy the original art painting for similar price? You know what I mean? That's always going to be a stigma. You know what I mean? You're
yeah,
gonna have to be a
yeah.
cards first person to be able to resist that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to
Mhm.
me, even for me, it doesn't make sense. Right?
Yeah,
Somebody who does, I'm a cards first guy, right? So it's like, even for me, I can't. If someone has the opportunity to buy the painting or the one of one, why would they ever buy the one of one? It doesn't make sense.
100%.
So,
I
and that's
yeah,
that's that's a tough spot too. I want to read something real quick just based on what you were touching on because I found this the
yeah,
other day and I was gonna bring this up. So what you said there about like the way that the thought processes go, I was reading an article about this, and it was not specifically to comics, but this is the kind of it's an interesting concept here. It says experts agree that people form meaningful attachments with products and brands. People are often drawn to things from their childhood or past because they symbolize and serve as a reminder for meaningful connections and memories from that era of time. The attachment itself isn't to the object, but to the emotions, relationships, and sense of security of what it represents, keeping our past with us in an ever-changing world.
Mhm.
I think that's really good. And I think that's I took a picture of that because it resonated with me as far as like why I'm interested in this stuff and like why I value it and things like that, right? It's familiarity, it's memories, it's you know, I lost my dad at a young age and stuff like that, and it brings me back to like that era of time, those memories that I have with him and stuff like that, you know. So I think that was a really well said there. What you were where you were angling at, where you were going with that, you know. That's exactly why a lot of us do it, you know, is because of those, you know, these are things that we thought were awesome whenever we were 5 or 6 years old now, and then and now we have the ability to upscale it to like, you know, be able to pick it up and like have it at the highest end, you know, with that being the original art or a 9.8 book, you know, and things like that. So
Yeah, no, same with me. I still remember the very first time I opened Marvel cards. I was 6, so it would have been 94, and it was Easter morning, and my parents used to have, like, Easter baskets,
yeah,
so we
yeah, yeah,
would wake
yeah.
up in the morning and then basically follow these clues to find our Easter basket, and inside of the Easter basket was a couple packs of Marvel cards, and it was a 94 set that had the, like, acetate where you had the
Okay.
front of the character on the front, and you flipped it over and you saw the back of the character, but
Yeah.
the
Okay.
character was, you know, colored, but the rest of the card was clear.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
pulled a Wolverine, and I was just like, my mind was blown. I still remember this. This is one of my earliest memories. And then like the smell of the cards too, dude. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look into
Yeah.
the card stores still to this day just to like smell the
Yeah.
smells.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
card
Yeah.
stores don't carry Marvel cards. They never carry Marvel card singles, but I'll go just to remember the experience of being as a kid and smelling that smell. And it takes you back and connects you to those memories and feelings in that moment in time.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
ultimately, that's why we all started collecting Marvel cards again. You know, there's still a card today that I look at. It's a Deadpool card from 95. I'm looking, actually, I found the original art. I've messaged the guy on 3 different platforms. He hasn't messaged me back. If I can get that, I will pay stupid money for it. But every
Which
time I look at
95 is it?
it,
Which 95? What's the set?
I'll send you a picture since
Okay.
I'm,
Okay.
yeah, I'll send you a picture of
Got
it.
you. Got you. Yeah.
Um, but every time I look at that, I have it takes me back to like a specific memory in time where I'm like in my little closet with my friend, like just looking at this card and just thinking, oh my gosh, how cool is this? So it is cool to have that tie-in connection. Now, you have to leverage that as Upper Deck or Tops or these card companies to create and maintain interest moving forward. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not happening today. I mean, you can go and maybe find some Marvel cards in, you know, Target or Walmart occasionally if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most adults are buying those out, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of card shops don't even have those booster boxes that are affordable. So you
Yeah.
can't even go
Yeah.
to a card shop anymore and buy those. I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that since we just went through this 10-year period of Marvel movies, there are, you know, a generation of kids that grew up in that time. I'm hoping in 15, 20 years, as those kids that were 10 become 25 and
Yeah. Yeah.
30,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
look at the movies and it makes them realize, oh, there's
The same
other
feelings we had about the
components
comics.
to these
Yeah. Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, and
Yeah.
now they're interested in the comic, and then maybe they find the cards through that. So they kind of go through this other avenue that ultimately leads them to Marvel cards. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
more steps involved, and each step someone has to take
Yeah. Yeah.
to maintain interest or find interest in a certain thing. It takes them away from that moment of inspiration and separates the likelihood of them ultimately finding something like Marvel cards. Whereas for us growing up, it's that one step. It's we
Yeah.
had the experience with the card as a kid, and now as an adult, through movies and other things, being reminded, oh, there were cards on those. I wonder what the deal is with that.
Yeah.
Doing a
Yeah.
search, and now you see a $50,000 card, that sparks your interest.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
I
For
mean?
sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But I think that the card companies and really Marvel as a whole is missing the mark. I mean, anytime you come out with a new card, you should have, or a new movie, you should have promo cards for that movie. You remember
Yeah.
when Pokemon, the first Pokemon movie came
Yeah.
out,
Of
and they
course.
had
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
promo cards of
Mhm.
Mewtwo, and there
Yeah.
wasn't a Mewtwo card up until that point?
It was Mew. It was Mew who
It
you're
was
thinking of.
Mew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Like I still have that Mew
And I
promo
still
code.
remember that. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why are they not doing that for Deadpool and Wolverine? Can you imagine the
Yeah.
amazing cards that they could have made for that? Why are they not doing that for all of these Marvel card shows and movies that are coming out? This is how you tie in and maintain a whole new industry. Talk about like, I have no idea what it costs to license the rights to Tops or Upper Deck for to make Marvel cards, but if you as Marvel were having those type of promotions, you're increasing the value of that license substantially. Now
Yeah.
you have two players that are most likely bidding for the license through Tops and Upper Deck. Tops obviously outbid Upper Deck. So why would you not try to increase the value of your IP and the value of that potential license by doing something as easy as making promo cards for your movies you're already making? And what
Yeah.
cheaper way to have advertising than to print little freaking cards? What's a card
Yeah.
cost? A cent?
Yeah.
And you're going to increase the value of that license substantially. And not only today, but long term. Like that's long term growth. It's sad. It's unfortunate, and I don't know why they're not doing some of these things. Look at how big comic conventions have gotten, comic cons.
Yeah.
You
For
never
sure.
see
For sure.
Marvel cards at any of these comic book conventions or comic cons. You
Yeah.
see Pokemon everywhere. You see One Piece everywhere. Where is Marvel cards? Like it blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. OAX is the only one that's really doing anything with
Hmm.
for it. And like I said, I'm going to that next year, so I'm very interested to see how all that is. But I've heard nothing but good things about it. But yeah, no, that they're the only ones that are doing anything for it.
Yeah.
Which is very like strange as well. There could be some element of like Marvel's already got so much money that they don't really like like they may perceive the bit of a difference of making those promo cards wouldn't make that much of a difference for them, considering they're already like at the absolute top end of like entertainment of the entertainment industry. So maybe there's a factor of that involved in that. But yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see like little small things done to try to like push our niche a little bit further and stuff like that. I just don't know. Like
Mhm.
it's a weird spot. Like besides, but like, that's a great example of what you just said there, as far as something that extra that they could do that we don't really see. But like, like I honestly don't know, except for better. Like as far as Upper Deck goes, like I thought their inserts were the creativity for their inserts was very very good. I think that like comparatively so far with what we've seen for Tops, right? Like just for example, let's go 1A with Upper Deck here. Like for example, a comic cut I think is a great insert idea or concept, right? And then in this X-Men 97, we have these cards that are like filmed over, and they're called a Sentinel scan, as if you're seeing it through the Sentinel's eyes.
Mm.
Those cards look like shit. I
Mm.
don't think I've seen anybody be like, "Oh man, I pulled a Sentinel scan Gambit," like, and so like, like, I mean, and then like sketch cards. That's another great insert. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
yeah.
I think that Rittenhouse was probably the first people, or was he? Who did the
Sketch effects
Yeah,
and
who
like
did those? Who were doing those? Fleer Ultra Spider-Man, right? That was the first one. So 1997 Fleer Ultra Spider-Man. So I mean, it was if Fleer was owned by Upper Deck at that point in time, then it would have been Upper Deck, right? So in theory, you could say that they came up with it or whatever. And that's a good insert, though. Like I
yeah,
think sketch cards are incredible. I think they're a great way to make a budget collector be able to get an original piece of art, right? Like that's it's a great idea, great concept. It's like
yeah.
if and then obviously Tops is going to carry that over, but like
I hope so.
they're
I've
they're
talked.
they're in, they're in X-Men 97. They're sketches in that set, so
Okay, good.
there are sketches. But yeah, so I don't know what the answer is to get like as far as like what you can do product wise more than Upper
Yeah.
Deck did, as far as better QC, better customer interaction, better feedback processing from the manufacturer. And maybe like a little bit better effort of image selection. But like as far
Mhm.
as creativity goes, I can't say anything negative about creativity from Upper Deck. They just didn't do their QC as good as they should have, I think, But
Yeah.
as far as Tops goes, like we're getting like shit on both sides of it so far, like
Mhm.
nothing new, shitty art selection, um, no new, like, I mean, I guess the Sentinel scan is a technically new insert, but it's like, it's kind of like a Chuck E.
Like the
Cheese.
Daily Bugle of
Yeah,
inserts.
exactly, yeah. So I don't know what the answer is though for that. I hope that something, they can figure something out that really like, because those Star Wars sets seem to do pretty well.
Yeah, oh yeah, dude. They
Yeah.
do. They pull some big money. So I have a genius idea, or what I think is a genius idea, talking about the like collecting or capturing the crossover interest between comic books and Marvel cards. They should make comic books where some of the panels in the book itself is blank. So you have a full comic book page, but maybe one of the panels on that page is blank. It's not colored in the
Okay.
story, it's a gap in the story. But then there's a Marvel card set that releases and it has comic cuts that fill in that panel in that comic book. So now you buy the comic book and then you buy the cards trying to get the comic cuts that you can then take and place into your comic book that completes that page, for example. How
Okay.
sick would
Okay.
that be?
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Yeah, they have to do that with only books moving forward, obviously. Um,
Mhm.
and then like, what would you number the cuts to, or would you just have them as a regular insert that were unnumbered, right? Because everybody would want to be able to put those
Everyone would
together.
want them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe you have like I don't know. I don't know how you'd do it. I haven't fully thought this idea out. That's as far as I've gotten. But you could have some that are more limited. You could have some that are more mass printed. Maybe the idea is to keep them limited. And now there's only like 100 books that can be completed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's 100 cuts out there.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I think
that
that
builds a
idea
lot
of
of value.
making it like an objective or a mission
Right.
to do is good, because that's the way that a lot of us collect, right? Like we
Yeah.
create a goal in our mind and then
Yeah.
we go for that goal, and like that's a good, almost like people that play video games for achievements, right? It's like that sort of
Exactly.
same concept. So yeah, that's cool.
Exactly.
That's
And it
cool.
gamifies it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. So going back to kind of this card and this sale, so this is an interesting one of one because it's a superfractor, and the
Right.
term superfractor is Tops's terminology for their one of one cards.
Well, they have
So
this refraction as well. They have this like this
this
circular kind
pattern,
of pattern. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
yeah. So this is what we're seeing that's driving a lot of insert value in Marvel cards is anytime we see, or not anytime, but oftentimes when we see one of the most popular inserts in sports cards pull over into Marvel cards,
Yep.
then the value of those inserts inside of Marvel cards are more than some of the other inserts that might
Yep.
not exist in sports. So I want to talk about what are some of the things that we should be considering when we're trying to assign value to Marvel cards. Like what's the thought process we should be going through that ultimately tells us, you know what, maybe we should spend 50K on this card because it is the first top set, because it is the first time we have a chance in Marvel card to collect superfractors, which are popular in sports.
Yeah.
Um, those are really the two things that come to mind here. But I think there are some other things that we should consider as well. So, like, what's important? Well, set.
Yeah,
You
first
got to
Marvel set
consider
would be an
sets.
example of that, like you just said for tops, right? That's a good example of that for sure, right?
Mhm. And
Um,
then obviously insert,
yep,
and
yep.
then character, and then image and artist. Do you
If
have
there
any
is
other
an
thoughts?
artist, right? That's the thing, right? It's like some of these, like for example, the Topps Chrome Juggernaut, even though it's the first top set, they used new Excalibur artwork, which is like one of his lowest. I mean, I shouldn't say one of his lowest, but it's not a popular book, right? Like that's why I always kind of valued the high series stuff,
Hmm.
quite a bit. Like especially in X-Men Metal, for example, like you have like just classic banger artwork for a lot of like the OG characters. Like Domino, for example, her high series images is from the cover of the New Mutants, the first appearance of Deadpool. You know,
Yeah.
the Juggernaut card had Warner Roth, X-Men 33 title splash page. Like those high series and that set I thought were just really, really solid, really well done, great image selection. And then on the low series, it was the complete opposite. You know, you have House of M art for the vast majority of the characters and stuff like that. And it was just such a cop out, in my opinion, for like those low series, the low series selection. And like you know, it's like if you're like, I feel like Topps Chrome should have been like choosing classic images. You know, like if this is the first set, so like people are gonna reference it back as being like the vintage set of it or whatever, right? I think that should correlate with like vintage artwork as well, right? Like you should
100%.
have like Iron Man in like a vintage costume suit, or at least something from like the 90s. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's probably like a late 2018 image or something like that that they chose for those for some of those cards or whatever. And like I know the new Excaliburs were like, you know, at least like mid 2000s to maybe 2010, 2015 or something like that. It's just I didn't really understand that choice for those so far. Like you know, it's like you're trying to get something that I guess maybe speaks to a more modern crowd, I guess. But like, it's like to me, this is supposed to be like a timeless. This is your first um, insertion into this card community. We should be using stuff that brought these characters to this point in time, not this
Hmm.
not this modern art selection. I was very disappointed in that. Just a kind of a side note as well. But yeah,
I
you know,
agree.
just not great. But
Yeah, I agree. I think that was X-Men Metal the first time they started doing high series and low series.
it's a good question. Trying to think of sets that were before what Spider-Man Metal came after that.
Hmm.
Um, it may have been. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, Fleer Ultra X-Men definitely didn't do it. 2018 didn't have it.
Hmm.
2019 was Flare. 2020 Marvel Masterpieces. Yeah, so probably was honestly. And I, dude, like that for someone. I know I said this in another video, but like I saw the purple high series Juggernaut 1 of 1, and that is the only reason that I ever got into the modern sets was because of that card alone. Because it was the actual comic image, and it was
Yeah.
like, and I was like, dude, like this is badass. You know, that was the thing to
Yes.
me that was like, this is exactly what it should be. You know,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I just never really have understood like deviating away from that. You know, like you should be choosing like, and I know in some cases they do choose like actual stuff from books and stuff like that, but I don't think we get enough like classic images. You know, to like a
100%.
Spider-Man, like the Spider-Man PMGs for the most part are using like modern
Yeah.
like. You know, put a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man image on a green PMG. Like, how is that not going to be like
That's
that's like a such an uncapitalization of Upper Deck. You know what I'm saying? It's such
yeah.
poor like judgment of like what what we should be actually putting on these cards. You know, like I feel like that would be like, you know, those cards sell really high now, obviously just because it's Spider-Man. But if you had like a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, you know, gold PMG would be like fucking people would go
Insane.
crazy for that. You know?
Insane. Dude, to that point, and the X-Men Metal point, like so in X-Men Metal, the high series Deadpool card is the first appearance of Deadpool
Yeah,
from New York
exactly, dude.
78.
Exactly,
And now you
exactly.
have that as a PMG.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's freaking awesome. Like
yeah,
well done. That's
yeah.
beautiful. Now what they have to make sure to do is not reuse that image in other card sets. Once you
Correct.
have
Yeah,
like a first appearance like that on an exceptional card like a PMG, you have to not water that down by re-releasing that image in other
yeah,
sets. You've got
yeah,
to reserve that. Or your example with Juggernaut. Like if they start making that same image on different inserts
yeah.
with
Of course.
Juggernaut,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You got to be wise as one of these manufacturers to say, we did it right the first time. We connected the image with a sweet insert in a
Yeah.
certain set, and now that image is like retired.
Well,
Like
it
you
also too, like you have the capabilities, right? If like if for example what we're saying is true, which I think that it is, that the X-Men Metal was the first time we saw high series. Well, just have the high series be specific inserts to metal, right?
right,
Make the
right,
first appearance of the
right,
character be tied to the high series and metal,
yes,
and then just don't do it again, right?
yeah,
You know? And if you
yeah,
do, like let's say you have a crossover, right? Let's say you have Spider-Man Metal, you have X-Men Metal, you use maybe the same book or a very close book, for example, and you just do a different image from the same book, right? That's how
hmm,
you would do it, right? So you don't have the same obvious first appearance image from, X-Men metal carried over to Spider-Man metal, right? But it seems so simple, you know what I mean? But
Right.
like it feels like
Yes.
Upper Deck just doesn't, like, they're just like idiots whenever it comes to like understanding like what we actually would want to see, right? Like
Yeah.
they accidentally put my favorite title splash page of all time on a card, and that is the only reason that I dove into the modern cards, is because and like I mean they intentionally chose that image or whatever. It's not the first appearance of Juggernaut; it's like the fourth technically,
Mm.
but it's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite title splash. I mean, it's probably my favorite Juggernaut image ever. Period.
Mm.
It's one of my favorite, like it's one of my favorite images. But like yeah, it's like dude, like the Domino card looks great. Like from it being from the cover of that the first New Mutants with Deadpool, um, and like yeah, I don't know. I just never have understood like deviating away from that concept.
And
Um,
it's weird because they still kind of missed the mark there because they redid the high series low series concept with Spider-Man metal, but the Spider-Man card still wasn't the first image of Spider-Man.
yeah. Well,
So it
I
would
don't think it
be
necessarily has to be the first image. Like for example, I think that would
one
be
of
like
the
that would
earlier
be
ones.
badass if it was though.
Yeah,
It would be very badass if it was the very very first image for every single character in
yeah,
every single high series metal set. I agree with that. That would be so badass. But like like with okay, so for let's say you did that, right? You do that for X-Men Metal, for example, right? You have X-Men Metal where you have the original first appearance for every character as their card image for the high series, right? You have Uncanny X-Men, right, which is the main original X-Men storyline for the comics, right? And then you have X-Men Volume 2, which is the 90s X-Men comic book line that doesn't say Uncanny in front of it, right? Why
hmm
not just take the first appearance from that second
yeah, dude.
series and make that the low series, right? That imaging. That's what I always thought whenever I was like looking at X-Men Metal was like,
Oh,
dude, if you're gonna
yeah,
take all these images from the high series from the vintage books, like, and I
yeah,
understand the 90s are vintage books now and stuff like that too, but it's like you have the perfect, like, we don't need to go into 2005, like because like nobody, like, who did the House of M art? Nobody knows a single person's name. Andy Kubert, Adam Kubert were all over the 90s X-Men stuff, right? Those
hmm
people know all those names, right? Like make
hmm
it stuff where people are familiar with like what the artists are, and then you might start getting some of those people who are interested in the OA into it, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I never understood that. That should have been what they did was Uncanny X-Men high series original images, and then the 90s X-Men volume 2, take the first images from those sets where those characters reappear with new artists that also still had this, a good level of popularity when the comics were still sort of booming. Instead of like, House of M, like how many people have even read that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. That
so,
that's such a good point because, and I love that concept. I can't believe that no one's thought to do that concept
yeah.
for upper and lower. That would be such an awesome set, and then you could kind of see the evolution of your character all in one set through these two
Yeah.
cards. That would be so sick. But it does seem like they have like um, these like solid ideas, but then just the execution isn't always there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
The execution is terrible. Let's be real. The execution has always been pretty much terrible. Let's be fair. Yeah.
I wonder, like, I would love to talk to them, and maybe at some point we'd have the opportunity to. But like, how do they decide who picks the images, and then how does that person decide what images to pick, and why are they repeating images on sets for big cards?
Yeah.
You
Why
think
is it
of
always rushed?
Yeah, well, you think of Spider-Man metal, and then you think of Avengers metal. Avengers metal. Iron Man and Captain America had repeated PMG images in them.
Yeah.
And these are your Avengers, your biggest cards, your biggest characters in your Avenger themed set. You're using the same images from PMG's biggest cards in previous sets. It makes no sense to me. Like, is
Yeah.
this an
Hor-
oversight? Is this
horrendous. Yeah. Horrendous.
they don't care? Is
Yeah.
this they don't remember that they used these before? Like, is there any checks and balances that's going into the image selection, or is it, because I imagine it's different people choosing the images, so maybe they just don't know. But at the same
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
you would think they would have a catalog of all images used in previous sets that they would go back and cross-reference and say, I'm making a new Iron Man card. Let me make sure that there hasn't been this same exact image used 2 years
Yeah,
ago in
yeah.
the last metal set.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah.
But that fell through multiple times with the Avenger metal, and that's really unfortunate. But so now, does that issue compound with Topps coming in, who might be looking at creating a first appearance set that has first appearance Deadpool on their big insert and first appearance Juggernaut on their big insert? And how does that affect what we should be paying for now these Topps cards that are using the same sets? I mean, in my opinion, if you create a new Topps version of a Deadpool PMG with the first appearance of New Mutants 98, that should not pull the same premium as the Upper Deck version, because really it's just a repeated
Repeated. Yeah, it's an X-Men or it's a Marvel Masterpieces 92 Platinum essentially at that point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I worry about that. I hope that Topps would be looking at, and familiar with the cards and the images used on the cards in Upper Deck. But
well, that's not true though. They've reused a ton of shit already. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Silk, I know, comes to mind for their Topaz and their other set. The Silk was in the Spider-Man metal set.
The Indestructibles set, which is a small insert in the original Topps Chrome one, that same one that Iron Man was from. There's indestructible cards. There's 5 of them. Galactus, Juggernaut. There's some characters that are like big, bulky characters or whatever. All of those are all reused images as well already. Every single one of those.
That's such a shame. Hopefully that doesn't become a pattern. I wonder if they're going to try to I don't really know what Topps big sports inserts are. It seems like Upper Deck has really the most famous inserts with PMGs, Jambalayas, Platinum Portraits.
EXs as well.
EX. And then Intimidation Nation, that's a pretty big one in sports. Those cards look freaking sweet in Marvel cards as well.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, like all that stuff is Upper Deck, right? Like they're good with their inserts, right? They just suck at like the execution of making the card. Like it's like the creativity is there, the execution is just not, like we said, it's like garbage.
I think one thing Topps does though is they get pretty unique, and I could be misremembering. I'm not as familiar with sports cards, obviously, but I think they'll do things with they'll take a cleat and they'll put a cleat in a card.
Oh yeah. Yeah, true. They baseball bat pieces, things like that too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be cool if Topps was able to run with that idea, and if they were able to get like a piece of the eye from a Deadpool mask that was used in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
You know how much money I would spend on something like
prop memorabilia? Yeah, that would be sick, bro. Actually, that'd be fucking
more specifically suits. Like if I could have a piece of the actual Deadpool suit that was in the movie on a card with an original image, like
I'm with that. I'm with that, bro. Yeah, same for the Juggernaut. I mean, there's only been the Deadpool. Well, there's the old X-Men one with that did terrible with Benny Jones, but like Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool 2, Juggernaut and stuff like that. I'd be all over that shit, dude. Yeah, for sure. I'd be with that. I like that. That's better than those fucking fake autographs they're doing, right?
So, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Or who Upper Deck tried to do that with the Spider-Man and Venom webs. I don't know if you've seen those cards, but it's got a little piece of like plastic web on the card.
Okay.
And cool concept, but for me,
yeah.
Some people love those, and again, cool concept. It's like, I don't know, like the idea was kind of there, just not executed.
Classic Upper Deck there,
right.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about image, why that's important. Obviously, character. I mean, character is probably the least important thing on this list because it's dependent on who the collector is.
Yeah,
right?
true.
Some person's going to put more importance on Spider-Man. Some person's going to put more importance on Wonder Man, and it's all just kind of personal preference. Let's talk about artists, and you kind of hit on this a little bit, but like Adam Kubrick or Joe Jusko, or what makes in your mind what consideration are you thinking about when you're going to spend lots of money on a card from the artist's perspective?
Well, okay, so like with the card, when it comes to cards, I mean, I think the thing that stands out the most, right, is that original art is king in this, right? Like if you have a brand new image that's unseen before, it creates a significant premium. We see that with the Marvel Masterpieces sets, Joe Jusko's 2016. I mean,
Mhm.
there wasn't anything to compare it to back in '92, right? Because I think that was probably the first original art set. If not, yeah, I think it was actually, as a matter of fact. Um, so that for as timeless as that set has become and classic as that set has become, I think it's pretty clear, or we have enough evidence to say that like original art is king, right? Like
Yeah,
that's if you
absolutely.
have a brand new image that you've never seen before, that you have a high tier artist creating for a card set, it is going to be the top of the it's going to be the top of the pyramid there, right? Next, you could argue, if Upper Deck had done it correctly, as we're saying, like you could do like if you had first appearance images, you could be basing it on like the classic, actual comic book artists, right? Because technically that would be their art that you're seeing on those cards at that stage, right? And I think that could be that. I mean, again, if we had Todd McFarlane Spider-Man on a PMG, I think that card would be pulling a much higher premium than some of these shitty images Upper Deck has selected from their. I shouldn't say shitty, but just not as high tier as a Seth MacFarlane, or, excuse me, Todd McFarlane. Spider-Man and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's certain things that like did we ever see a black suit Spider-Man PMG? I don't think that we did. Or symbiote Spider-Man
No,
PMG.
there's a Miles from 2017, and it just says Spider-Man on it. And Miles'
Okay.
suit is black, but it's not like the Spider-Man black suit.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's things like that, man. Right? It's like if you like had like I think Warner Roth is the most iconic juggernaut vintage artist that exists, right? I mean, Jack Kirby never really actually did anything but the cover for X-Men 12. The interior artist was Alex Toth, and then like even X-Men 13 was, I have to look up the name of the guy. It was a different guy, right? So Jack Kirby's never even really doing the juggernaut himself, except for the cover of X-Men 12. He did the layouts for those books, but then like at that point, from my perspective, it's like I would rather see Warner Roth Juggernaut on the cards, which is what I got with the X-Men Metal High Series, than I would either of those other ones, even if they were. It's like in X-Men 12, which is Juggernaut first appearance, you never actually see Juggernaut until the very final panel,
Mm,
like clear. Like as he's like making his way towards the mansion, it's just all like kind of blurred out, kind of hazy images and stuff like that. Whereas you finally see him standing in front of Professor Xavier at the end. Then you get a lot of clear shots in X-Men 13 and stuff. But like it's a weird spot, right? If you can find these people that like appreciate these characters, like Rob Liefeld, like some of the stuff he's done, right, with the X Force, like those probably are more classic images of Cable than even his first appearance. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like those are like whenever you think of Cable in your mind, you're thinking of Rob Liefeld. It's like that's like the X Force Cable is what all of us in our mind
Yeah.
envision, right? So if you have something that's like the kind of the classic images of the characters and stuff like that, then it's gonna be more impactful to the collector. So
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of have original art, and then kind of what I'm hearing is like a history of drawing Marvel cards, and then kind of more specifically, um, like the original
classic
yep,
images, right? Classic
classic
images.
images. Yeah,
Like that's a better way, I think, to say it. Like
yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then so what do you think about, because we've had a handful of like newer artists come into the space recently, and their art is drawing massive premiums. I think of Rose Besh, Liddy Lee, Dan Dos Santos. They don't really have a history of drawing Marvel cards or comics, but it seems like those are a couple that are pulling massive premiums in Marvel card space
Well, I
today.
think that I think that Liddy does Liddy have any sort of history besides Marvel cards?
I don't know if she does.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Liddy's someone who's just now arriving, to be fair, right? Like she's been doing the sketch cards and being like one of the most premium modern sketch card artists and holding that for the last 15 years, where like like her stuff is proven to sell, right? Like her
Yeah.
stuff always sells, right? So like she just now got to where she had actual card art in this Fleer Ultra Matriarch set, right?
Mhm.
That Tarantula original art is her best card in that set. That Tarantula OA is fucking sick.
It is really sweet.
And
One
Steve
thing
Warbrough bought that. He's got it,
I
motherfucker.
I think I saw a video where he mentioned that. But one thing I want to point out with Lydia Lee that I recognize, well, two things. Lydia Lee, her characters often have elongated necks. Have you
Okay.
noticed this?
I've not, no, huh?
These aren't good examples where they don't, but look at this image and compared to this image. It's like she has a static idea of what a female looks like, and then she makes all of the characters fit her female form, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah,
See
yeah.
any difference
All of her art
between
looks the
these
same.
two?
Yeah, that's fair. Like for sure, all of her
It's the
art stuff looks
colors.
the same.
Like these look like the same people, they're just in different colored outfits.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know
I
what I
mean, yeah,
mean?
she does the facial structure the same way. It's almost like a little hinty of anime style. Like, yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
think that's, but like that's what people like though, right? Like, I mean, it's not
Yeah,
particularly my thing per se. Like, dude, people love it, right? And so, like, I'm not gonna sit here
yeah.
and like, like, if it has, and I think she's proven, right? Like, Liddy Lee is
Oh, for
proven
sure.
at this point, right? So it's like, I think it's fun. I think it's fantastic that Upper Deck has realized at this stage of the game, even though it's the very end, that like, wait a minute, this girl is like, she is hella popular, right? So it's like, um, we should try to include her into like original, like this is maybe the first person who's been a sketch card artist who is now getting to where they're like, hey, do original art for
Mm,
our cards for us, right? And I think that is like the most like respectful come up that exists, as far as like, our side of the space or whatever, right? It's like she's like worked her way up from being she's probably doing these sketch cards for like what, pennies on the dollar, as they always
yeah,
have been, right? And now she's like, a featured artist on a set. I think that no one is more deserving, let's put it that way, right? As well. It's like,
yeah,
she's made a massive name for herself. I mean, okay, let's back it up a little bit. Nar also did that, right? Let's be fair, right? Let's be fair. But
true.
as far as modern stuff goes, she's really like, worked her way into it and stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, please don't mishear me. I love Lydia Lee. Her art, her females specifically, they're killer. Like, and
yeah,
she's
yeah, yeah,
definitely deserving, and she seems like a really nice person.
yeah.
But it's just interesting. Like, this Enchantress looks basically the same as
Yeah, yeah,
Moonstone,
yeah.
who looks
Yeah, yeah,
basically the
yeah.
same as whoever this is.
But I
They're
think
just in
Tom
different
Fleming's art's the
costumes.
same as that though, right? I think Tom Fleming's art looks kind of specifically like it has like a, even though the characters may look a little bit different, like I think the kind of grittiness that he has kind of all looks the same. Like there's a, like for example, like Dan Dos Santos, right? Like if you look at his female pieces from that, like most of those in my opinion have the same kind of glossy feel. And I think that you're going to get that for any sort of like um I will say that card specifically, I think, is a little different. That's what made me so interested in buying it. But like, dude, look at like type in Tom Fleming renditions. Type in that one.
Okay, but I want to. So you bring up a good point, and I want to speak to this real quickly because no, you're not going to show me 2018. Oh, Tom Fleming. There we go. Where?
There's such limited 2018 stuff. You're probably gonna have to type in actually 2018. Like,
Okay. Gosh dang it. 2018. So yeah, you're right. I think here we go. So look at this Deadpool. Compare it to this Juggernaut. Obviously, like the characters look drastically different. But look at some of the features. The arms of
yeah, yeah,
Juggernaut,
yeah.
massive,
Yeah,
massive
yeah.
arms.
It
Like
almost
some
looks
of the,
like, yeah, it looks like fluidy sort of in a way as well, right?
Mhm.
Like it looks, like that's the best way that I would describe it. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is like I think it's okay that all of Lily Lee's stuff looks exactly the same because I think other artists' stuff looks the same as well. Like if you were to pull up like all the rendition stuff that he did recently for this rendition set, I think all of that looks the same. Let's see here, Tom Fleming. Oops. Ren.
This card, Tom just posted this on Instagram, the original art. looks. I love this card. This card
Yeah,
is
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's just the way. Yeah, like this.
Yeah, I
That
guess
to
you
me
could
looks
probably
like
put like.
Deadpool
Yeah,
with
you
it.
could put Deadpool's head on there, and then it's the
Yeah, yeah.
same. So okay, maybe I was unfairly commenting on
It's like
literally
click on the Marvel girl, the Captain Marvel right there as well. Click on that one.
this one.
Yeah. Like that could be Danny Moonstar if you put Danny Moonstar's head on it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I take it back.
Even
Apologize,
that, yeah,
literally.
even that Ghost Rider too. Like like
Yeah, that's true. That is a sweet card though.
yeah, sweet. Yeah, it's great, and it's not take away from the art at all. It's great art. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But everybody like if and I always view that. If you have a niche and you are successful in that, then I don't think you should change, right? It's like Liddy Lee's is proven to be good, right? So why should she deviate from that? Oh yeah, there you go. That could be the Juggernaut. If you
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
All right, I walk back my statement. You've proven me, and this is Deadpool. Basically, it's just white
Yeah,
Deadpool.
there you go. Yeah, perfect. That's an even better example of the Deadpool. Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, again, if it's
All right,
proven,
I
right?
walk it
People are
back.
paying, people are paying for it. Then it's there's no reason for them to change it. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I do love Tom Fleming, dude. Like, he's got to be one of my favorites. This isn't the best example of Black Panther, but his style that I guess you can definitely tell when when you see one of his cards, and I think that's cool. And Lily Lee definitely has that too. I think all good artists do. You can look
yeah,
at
yeah,
any
yeah.
depiction of any piece that they have and recognize, oh,
Palumbo,
this is theirs. Oh
you know,
yeah,
you know,
Palumbo,
yeah,
um, Simone Bianchi.
yeah. He's yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, all those people like that. You can tell their art is because it all sort of like is the same. Yeah, that's clearly Tom Fleming, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
clearly. He does such a good job with like the watercolors and the lights. Like he
Yeah, yeah,
brings so
yeah.
much light.
Shadows, he does a good job with the uniqueness of shadows, right? Where it's like, it's a different take on lights and darks for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you disproved my point. I was wrong. I walk it back. All right, so we got classic image, and then maybe like style, recognizable style. But what if someone comes on the scene? Okay, what about Noel Grego? Like, I don't think he has history in Marvel cards.
He does.
I
He's
think,
like Dan. He has like success in things like outside of Marvel cards previous to this,
okay,
right? Like he's done like graphic novels, things like that have like become pretty popular and whatnot.
got
He's
it.
so it's the same as Dan Dos Santos like had a huge name before he did the Marvel masterpieces. Said it only
Yeah,
elevated him further. So
yeah. But people didn't seem to really rally around that set. I think it's less because of the art. I think it's more because of all the inserts
talking about
that were
22 or which one are you talking about?
uh, Noel's masterpieces.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's
People,
hard, right? I think it's hard for no matter who was gonna follow Dan Dos Santos, that person got fucked no matter what, just because they're the next set after Dan Dos Santos, right? Like Dan Dos Santos again, like I think his Juggernaut art was left a lot to be offered. To be fair, right? I think Dave Palumbo has the greatest Juggernaut image for a masterpiece set, and I think Noel Grego's is like similar to Dan's. Like it's a bit of a cop out, I think.
okay,
Um,
let's take a look at this.
and don't get me wrong, I don't dislike the image, but it's not like it's a bit Kool-Aid Man, right?
I see what you're saying. It's kind of generic pose. I think that the art, like the
It,
depiction is sweet and well done, but it's just kind of like a generic pose. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
well, it's just like okay, all right, type in Dave Palumbo up there. Leave that one pulled up, and then go to Dave Palumbo's uh Juggernaut real quick
All
here.
right, Dave Palumbo.
This to me is timeless, bro. The background with the fire, the explosion. I mean, this
I
is
got
like
you.
textbook like that is there's a level of epicness to that, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Grandeur or whatever you want to call it, right? Like that to me is the best. And it's tough, dude. After seeing Jesco's in person in the painting, it's like it's I don't know if it's better than the Battle Spectra, but that one to me, individual card wise, like Juggernaut, it's with Colossus and the other, whereas that's just Juggernaut. That to me is that one will always be tough to beat there.
Yeah, I got you. That
You
makes
know,
sense. I
I mean,
think that's
do you think that? I mean, compare that to that. Compare those two. I mean, which one do you think is?
I like this one better. I like that you can like I like Palumbo's style first of all. Like you can
Yeah,
see kind of the brush strokes, but they also are placed like very strategically in a way that looks natural. This is like really good, but you can't see like it does. I think Kool-Aid is like a really good way to put it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
can just sense the artistic style that goes into this. And this is very artistic as well and stylistic, and it looks great. I love the image, but like this just, I
It's
think
more
there's more
po- it's more it's
feeling.
it's more polished, isn't it? It's more polished. It's a better word,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. And then look
and
at
this,
Dan's. Like whenever you get a chance, pull up Dan's as well, just to give the full like.
yeah. Let's take a look. Dan Dos Santos. This is
Yeah, that's it.
Dan's?
That's Dan's. Yeah, yeah.
So how do you, so one, what's two and three?
I would probably go Grego too, honestly.
Same.
And then so like and again respectfully, I think Dan collectively as a full set was like arguably like he was up there with Jusko, like as a full set, right? If you were to look at all the paintings compared to all the paintings, he's like the closest one to get to Jusko collectively as an entire set, in my opinion, right? And then Dave, and then I don't know, Bianchi and Grego would probably be pretty close for me, um, but like like his I also like his Songbird, his Jubilee, for Dave, that is, there was some images you saw from 2022 from Dan that were just like otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
Um
I like this card a lot though.
yeah. I think yeah, no, yeah, I mean, and that's what there are going to be certain artists that did certain characters better. Like that Grego is better than Dan's Wolverine, I think.
Yeah.
But like overall, I think that Dan's quality of art, like those battle spectras that Dan did,
Yeah,
man,
those are like,
were unreal. That Rogue Mystique, dude, like,
yeah.
it's just like those were just like, it's just like those are otherworldly well done, right? And like those cards, like I've not seen like I've not seen one of the Gregos and been like taken aback, if that makes sense. Whereas whenever I saw that Rogue and then the Rogue and Mystique from Dan, I was like, dude, holy shit, this is one of the greatest cards of all time. Like I was like, holy fuck. And that's not to say that Grego's bad. Again, it's not. It's like I wasn't stunned, if that makes sense. The Psylocke,
Hmm.
man, it's the Venom I thought was kind of personally.
Yeah.
Wasn't a
Same.
big fan of that one. But that one, that's a great one, man. That's a great image there with the Sentinels and stuff, dude. Like, like in the background.
Hmm. I really like this Archangel too, though. This reminds me of a card from the 90s.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't, yeah, like I just think personally, for my taste, that Dan did a higher quality overall of the collective set than anybody else besides Jusko. Which
These are,
sucks because I think Dan's Juggernaut is like one of the weakest cards that he did.
yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. I think Newell gets overlooked unfairly, though. Like, I'd
You think he's
probably,
better than Dan though? Is what you're saying? You think he's overall over the entirety of the set better than Dan?
I don't know. I don't know if I could say that. I don't think that I would say he's worse. I don't know that I would say his art was. I think that they are on par, in my
Okay,
opinion,
okay, okay.
overall. Like, that stylistically, like that, I like what you're talking about with the Sentinels. I like the like how it's dark and, but I don't know. This speaks to me more, and it's probably the tie-in to the '90s Archangel that's in my mind.
Yeah. And again, this is
Like,
all opinion, right? My opinion is not
yeah,
the absolute
exactly.
truth. It's just what I thought, and I think that even Noel, like in the interviews he's done whenever Dan's been there, he's sort of like kind of like the way he's handled it was that he wasn't quite the same caliber of artist that Dan was, as far as like his like respect to him and stuff like that. But
Mm,
I mean
this
that's like insane, bro. Like,
this is insane. Yeah,
yeah,
this card is absolutely insane. Did Noel do a Deathbird?
I don't think so.
Noel Grego. Yeah, he must not have. This is probably the best Deathbird card of all time.
Oh yeah, without question. I mean, it very well
It's
could be one
so
of the best
good.
Marvel masterpieces cards of all time. To be fair,
It's
like
so
it's
good.
that good, you know. I mean, I thought the Jubilee. Did you see the Jubilee that Dan did? Like that one to me is like one of the.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's
It's
Noel's,
Noel.
but
Oh, whoops. Yeah, that's Noel's. Go back to Dan. Didn't he use a friend as a model for this too?
I'm not
I think
sure. Maybe,
I think
but
this
yeah,
is modeled after one of his friends.
I mean, just the way her face is, it just is just it's so like Dan's is it's like the shadowing and the smoothness of the shadowing on her face is just unbelievable to me. Like the pink there, you know, the undertones like on her neck and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
just insane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is a great point. The like light highlights of coming off of this thing on
Yeah,
her
yeah.
face.
Yep.
Let's take a look at. The faces look very similar too
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
between the two.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, Dan's is more fine art, right? Whereas Grego's is almost more comic-y style, right? Like
Yeah,
you know, Dan is like truly a fine artist, like a classically trained fine artist, right? Who just happened to do a Marvel set, right? Whereas Grego has like he like has like a comic style naturally, I feel like, whereas Dan was just like, you know, painting fine portrait painting, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I think that that's a really good comparison between the two, and I think, at least in my mind, sometimes I appreciate more of the comic book
yeah,
style.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No doubt. Yeah.
I want to look at Grego's Spider-Man. He did an actual Spider-Man too, right?
I don't know, honestly.
Not just a Miles. Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
here
there
it
it
is.
is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's like super comic-y as well, right? That's like
Yeah.
super comic book style-esque.
I'm not the biggest fan of this card.
Yeah, I wasn't either. I feel like it was too I feel like it was kind of like too on the nose maybe is the right word. Like it was um he tried to make it too like he knew what the card was going to be for the set, so he tried to do this like over the top, right, like, you know, like super epic with all the background like villains and all that stuff. Whereas like if he had just done an image like he did for the card below, like the Wasp of Spider-Man or something where he was like in an action shot, it would have been like more effective in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I think so too. I think this is like the pose is powerful. It invokes emotion in me. He's like, for me, when he's putting on his mask, you know, he's becoming that superhero. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
transformative process that he goes through. And I think that's really cool.
I mean, imagine that background was just in full color as opposed to the
Yeah,
Golden's part of it, right? That would be
dude,
like super like it
exactly.
just had all the villains in the background, right, in full color the same way. Like that would be like, you know, he's taking on that
Exactly.
mask and taking on all the stress of having to deal with all these different villains, right? Like that would have been
Yeah,
a bit more, you know, it would have spoke to me more as well, for sure, you know.
exactly. I that's exactly where I was going with that. I could not agree more. Um, I really like this action shot. I think this is a great Spider-Man. And you
Yeah.
talked about earlier the highlights of the light on Jubilee. You kind of
Yeah,
got
yeah.
that same thing going on here. And you can get the speed in which he's moving because the traffic is all blurred.
Mhm.
Um, I think he killed it with this Spider-Man. I'm curious. We got Collective Colony in the chat. What do you think of Wasp? Have you seen Noel's Wasp? I'm not sure if I've seen Noel's Wasp.
I don't know if he did one or not. He may have though, but
Let's take a look.
oh, he
Dude,
did. Yeah,
that's sick.
yeah, that's better than Dan's, I'd say actually. Yeah, yeah, it for sure is in my opinion.
That's a really awesome Wasp. Just two very different takes. You really can't compare them. Like it's not really safe to compare the cards. Oh, and it looks like she might be small because this is look at this massive hand. It looks like it's coming in there. You got the Sentinel thing in the back. But I don't know. Like I definitely think that New Wells set is overlooked. I think long term, people
I
are
think
going.
everybody's just broke right now, bro. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's why it's not. Yeah, it's just like people are just broke as fuck right now. There's been so many releases and shit, dude. It's just like nobody has the money to spend on it appropriately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've gotten his stuff at 50% of what I got Dan's for. Across the
Really?
board. Yeah, across the board, man. Across the board.
What
I've gotten
are
the
you
of
going
10s.
for after Outside Juggernaut?
Nothing. No, I mean nothing
Okay.
at all. Yeah.
Juggernaut
But I mean,
cards.
like, like for example, I got the of 10s, the the red auto of 10, the silver frame of 10 for 400 a piece.
Wow.
Which is like,
And what did you pay for Dan's, if you don't mind?
the of
Talking
10s,
about it.
like the of 10s for Dan's were like 800 a piece essentially.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So literally like 50%.
Literally, yeah, across the board, almost every card, right? Yeah, the only ones that I haven't gotten yet are the variant cover auto, the lenticular mirage, and then the metallurgy. And the reason I've got the metallurgy is the people that have them on eBay are asking 400, which is what I paid for the up 10. Why would I? You know what I mean? It's one of those things that doesn't make sense, right? It's like it doesn't add up. It doesn't check out.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I think that, yeah, looking back, people are going to realize that they might have slept on Noel's masterpieces a little more than they should. A lot of his autos are going for steals right now, especially when you compare them to other sets. That being said, a lot of the autos from 2020 are going for a lot less than they should.
Benonkis as well, 2018s as well were dirt cheap and stuff as well. I have a Kingpin variant cover auto that I can't sell.
Really?
From 2018. Yeah, just can't sell it, dude. Like,
that's a shame. There's a couple big Kingpin collectors too, but yeah, I think people really went all out on Dan Dos Santos. No one was expecting Noel's, and it unfortunately was squeezed in as a part of like 9 sets that released that month.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a shame. And then you do have, it's weird that they changed the autos in Noel to the red.
Yeah, correct. I don't like that shit either, dude. Don't like it. Yeah, there should be consistency. Yeah, it should be consistent across the boards. I wasn't a big fan of the red spectrums myself, but they should have just kept that. That should have been the way that it went. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. It shouldn't have changed that. So now it's like you got all this weird, like there's no continuity across the board and stuff like that. It's just not great, not great. But that's again classic upper deck there. So
yeah, right, yeah, exactly. All right, so we got artists, we got images, we got character. What about insert? Like when I'm looking at a card out of 10, for example, I'm taking into consideration if I'm going to spend 1,500 on a card out of 10. I'm thinking about, well, first of all, what else could I get for that $1,500? Could I get something that is considered more special, more historic, part of a cooler insert? Like, what are the things that you're thinking when you have 1,500? You're looking at a card out of 10, for example.
Well, yeah, I haven't paid 1,500 for a card out of 12. I mean, the only ones that I was trying to think of cards that were 1,500 that I paid for that were out of 10. I think the only one that's ever been. The only cards that I've ever paid that price for were the green 2015 PMG, which was more than that. And then I also paid that exact amount for a Joe Jusko autograph 2016 buyback out of 15.
Wow.
The gold pin autographs.
Man, I'm so jealous that you're able to get the Juggernaut for 1,500.
Yeah. But those are the only one. I mean, every other of 10. I mean, Marvel Platinum, I didn't pay that for of 10s. Trying to think of other updates. I've never paid that for an autograph for Marvel Masterpieces of the Silver Spectrums. Never paid that for those. So it would have to be like PMG. I mean, I guess, right? You know, like a super high end tiered product. I know you just typed in Exquisite up there. The Marvel Gyms had that in there. That probably would be justified for that set, considering Exquisite's such a flagship premium product, right?
Yeah.
You know, certain autos, I mean, I guess maybe back in the day, but I mean, I've not seen a Silver Spectrum minus 2016, obviously, Silver Spectrums, you know, get close to, you know, 1500. I mean, maybe, you know, super, I shouldn't say that. I should say like probably, you know, like Wolverine, Venom, things like that, you know, from the modern sets probably get close. I mean, not for Juggernaut, that is, though. He's not getting,
Mhm.
you're not getting 1500 for an out of 10 Juggernaut unless it's like something like, you know, 2015 green, you know, essentially is the only thing that's
Mhm.
really gonna do that. Or I mean, maybe a 20. So okay, here's an interesting one. I have a 2018 purple of 10 PMG. I did pay more than 1500
Oh,
for that too, though.
how much is that?
Can't talk about that because the
Okay,
guy,
that's good.
because yeah, can't talk about it just because like I knew somebody who knew Mr. Fuxum, and then they,
Oh,
because
nice.
I got it directly from the source, so
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, got you. So, okay. Man, those purples, wait, the purple from, oh yeah, purple 2018 was 10 and the greens were out of 25 for
25,
some
correct.
reason.
Yeah. So I
Man,
have
I
one of
missed
the,
that up too.
yeah, yeah. So whenever I say like I'll have every insert, I'll literally have every single one here soon, like even
Wow.
including the ones that should be impossible to get, which was, you know, those. So
So did you just get that purple then?
no, I've had it for a while. It just came back from PSA though. I got a 9 actually, which is great.
Wow,
So
congrats. That's huge.
yeah.
What are you thinking about in terms of importance when you think of sets?
I think that's okay. Masterpieces obviously is a classic flagship. Original art, usually by a high tiered artist. You know, like I'm always been a high tier artist. I guess I should say that to me is like the original art is like the king selling point of our niche our side of the hobby. Set significance. You know, like I think that you know, even more so than sports card crossover. I think that like set significance, like, you know, like tiebacks to like, so for example, like let's just use Mr. Fuxum as an example while we're already here, right? He had a childhood where he really wanted to be involved in 1994 Fleer Ultra X-Men, right? This is the guy's story. He shared this on a podcast too, so I'm just going to kind of like go over all these points.
Hmm.
He came from a kind of an underprivileged family, couldn't afford this stuff. He would kind of just get the scraps from his friends that they would give him like their extra cards and stuff like that. He loved the cards though. He just never was in a position where his family could afford it. He grows up, he becomes very financially well off. There's the re-release of 2018. I'm not sure there was another Fleer Ultra X-Men set except for like there was 96. There was like other ones, non-modern Fleer Ultra X-Men sets, right? Um, then 2018 is getting ready to come out. He's finally, like as we've said, in a spot where, you know, financially he can do this sort of stuff. You know, you have this tie back to your childhood, you know what I mean, that invokes all these emotions, all that same stuff that we were talking about earlier. And he's just like, I'm going to buy the entire product run.
Mm.
He's like, I'm going to own it all, you
Mm.
know? And then, you know, that's what he did. You know, he chose to use the money that, you know, he's obviously, you know, super well off financially and stuff like that. But I mean, that guy's got almost all the one of ones, almost all the sketch cards, almost all the comic cuts, you know, literally spent millions of dollars if you were to do the math on that product, you know, and he has everything, you know, he
Yeah.
has the gold Juggernaut, 2018 gold 101, you know, he has all the stuff. So, you know,
I don't think Deadpool was a PMG in that set, thankfully. If it was, it'd be ridiculous money. What
yeah.
was the like? You have the other parallel PMGs from that set for Juggernaut?
Yes, I have all the parallels.
Were all those PMG prices inflated because he owns them all, or were you able to get those relative to what other PMGs of Juggernaut sell for?
Um, Only the purple was the inflated one.
Okay.
He values the cards that are harder to ascertain as more valuable. You know,
Yeah.
that set also has X cuts, which are like of five, things like that. Miles was trying to get an X cut of five from him. The guy just like he was just like, "There's only five. I'm not going to do it." If I hadn't, there was a certain situation that happened where I can't really talk about it too much without like
Yeah. No
there's some
worries.
people that don't want me to really, you know, talk. But
Yeah.
I was very fortunate in how it transpired for me to have that opportunity, right? Normally, under normal circumstances, it never would have happened. But there
Yeah.
were
He
some
doesn't
things that
make up
played in.
money.
yeah, there were some things that played out in my favor that where it became like a thing where I could make it happen. So
Yeah.
and that's not something that's going to happen for a lot of people. And again, that's not like me trying to be like egotistical or anything like that. I got very lucky, essentially,
Yeah.
is what happened. So
Yeah, you just don't see those cards. He never sells. I think like
correct,
you can reach
correct,
out to him and he'll take like 6 months to get back to you, if
exactly,
ever,
yeah,
and he
exactly,
will most likely say no anyways,
correct,
or
yeah,
sounds like charge what he thinks the cards are worth, which is fair. He
yeah,
owns
yeah,
all of them, so he can kind
correct,
of
yeah.
determine the
He is the
market.
market, right? Yeah, yeah, he is the market.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
So
only seen, I love the out of 50 autos for the base cards.
yep,
Obviously, I bought the Tom Fleming original art Deadpool from that
that's one
set.
I had to get from him as well. He
You
owns
did?
47 of them, so
Wow.
I had to get that from him as well. Yeah.
I saw that card pop up on eBay once
Yeah,
ever.
yeah. Yeah, that's all you'll ever see probably as well.
And I,
Like,
yeah, I grabbed it.
yeah, yeah.
I was like, I'll probably never see this again. It's not in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
best condition, unfortunately,
It
but
doesn't matter with those though because like that's it's probably like numbered to 10 essentially because the other ones are just never going to be available, you know? Like these just
exact.
never
That
gonna
was my
yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 I wonder, do you know if he went after the original art for those, that set at
No,
all?
he didn't. He did not. Mm.
That's kind of interesting to me. I mean, maybe it's just that card specific connection from childhood, so he doesn't really care, but
It was exactly that
yeah,
actually. He says that in the
okay,
podcast. He says that in that
really.
podcast that he did. Yeah, yeah. Ian somehow got him on the podcast to do an interview, which is I think is also crazy. But he does a
That is,
full 2 hour Marvel MCCW podcast, talks about why he did it, how he did it, you know, et cetera. Which is I thought was which I used that. You know, whenever I figured out that like I wanted to collect the way that I did or whatever, like this guy's got something that I want, so like I'm gonna have to figure out ways to like make this happen
like
or
with
whatever,
him.
right? So I had to like I listened to the whole thing to get, you know, the information that I needed to, you know, to figure out how are we gonna like do this or whatever and stuff.
Smart.
I actually have like which is something that's very rare to see nowadays. I have a sketch from that set as well, which I also, you know, it's like it's just
I don't
really
even
rare.
I didn't realize that there were sketches in that set.
Yeah, you
So
don't
is
because he
it a,
has all of them.
he has all of them,
Well, I mean,
literally. Is it
not
a
literally every
juggernaut?
single one, but like he has the
Right.
vast majority of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Is it a juggernaut?
yeah, it is. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Are there any Deadpools from that set? Do you
Oh,
know?
surely. I'm sure. I've never seen one, but I'm sure there are. Yeah. If he had a character card in the set, he probably there were probably are sketches of it or whatever that exist out there for sure. You
So
know.
this is a unique set to talk about, but I think it's worth it. In a set like this, where one person owns, what is it, 80%?
Oh, it'd be more than that probably. Probably
More than
90%
that?
of the product. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've heard anywhere from 60 to now 90% that he owns. So someone that owns that much of a set, should we as collectors that are chasing those cards be okay with paying a premium in your mind when those cards become available because 90% of them are locked up? Or how do you place values on those cards? Because I put a premium on
Yeah,
that Deadpool
I
auto.
think that the unfortunate reality is that you have to if you want if you know, I mean I did as well, right? You know, like I think that
Because
especially
you
for
see
like
the
the way that
skin.
I'm collecting, right? Like, you know, it would be so annoying if I had every single card and then I had just missing 3 PMGs from 2018 because this guy owns them all, right? But in my mind at least, right? So like that was where I was like, yeah, I'll you know, like we'll figure out a deal to make this work, you know. But um I don't know if it's justified or not, but it's like what you would have to do. You know what I mean? Like it's without question what you would have to do because that's what this guy's goal was, right? Is like, you know, so
Yeah.
it's just, if some kid comes around like, you know, 10 years from now that's like, you know, wants to be a juggernaut collector, right? The reality is that there's going to be limited options for him as far as you know one of ones for example and stuff like that, especially from this block of time where I'm like as I've been as hardcore about it as I have been and stuff like that. Like I'm not gonna like just because somebody wants it and I own it, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, just because you want it here, let me give you this. You know, like that's not this guy. His intention was to try to own as much of that product as he could. Like that's what he wanted to do, right? So it's like, how do you, you know, if he has the capabilities and the means to do it, and that's what he wants to do, then like, who are you to say like, you know, it's like, yeah, it screwed everybody else over, right? That's a character collector. There's so many things and so many pieces that so many people will never be able to get, right? Miles is one of those people. You know, he couldn't get the X Cut Neymar or whatever and stuff from it, but it's like
Mm.
this guy, you know, had the funds to do it. He chose to do it. You know, it's like he owns the product now. He has the right to, you know, do whatever he wants with it. And the thing is he's not really like he's not like doing the thing where it's like he's like, oh, I own all this and now I'm trying to sell it off and like get, you
Right.
know, He's not
It's
doing
just
that,
the
right? He's
thing.
curating that collection that he
Yeah.
has in like the most high upscale way, and
Yeah.
like just chooses not to sell the stuff or give the people
Yeah.
opportunities at it because he values it, right? And so like I don't really have as much of an issue. It'd be totally different, right? If he bought all that shit and he was trying to flip it, right? That's a totally different conversation.
For
That's not
sure.
what he's doing. That's not what he's
Yeah.
doing with it, right? He is truly appreciating that for what it is and what it represented for his life, right? Like
Yeah.
this was his vindication for what he felt whenever he was a kid, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's there's beauty in that on some level, you know what I mean?
Oh, I
So
respect it. I
yeah,
respect
yeah,
the crap out of it. I mean, if I had the funds and was able to do something like
yeah,
that
yeah,
and
yeah,
pulled it off, like that's massive. When we
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about how we each have our own kind of independent collecting goals that we look to like achieve or kind of
right,
gamify or form our collection in a certain unique way, he's been able to do that to a level no one else has.
correct,
Like
yeah,
his goal was own an entire print run of a set. Are
yeah,
you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
what an amazing collector goal to have, but then to
yeah,
execute on. And now it's gone through the boom. He wasn't compelled by the opportunity to sell his cards at an elevated
yeah,
price in
yeah, yeah,
2020, 2021, 2022. He held those cards because they mean something to him. He
yeah,
genuinely cares. Like, that's
yeah, yeah.
impressive. That's respectable, I think.
And that was something that,
Really
like,
awesome.
I will say this much, that was something that the that that tied into my to that opportunity that I got as well, is the recognition of the collecting in the same way. And that was something that had benefited me in that scenario to where like that was respected enough to where it was viewed as like I was not a person that was ever going to flip the cards that I was getting and stuff as well, right? It's like this is truly like someone who's trying to do something special and put something together that's like not the same as what he's
Right.
doing, obviously, but in the same conversation, right? So
Yeah. He
game
that
recognizes
kind of
game,
makes it
right? That's
even,
the
yeah, exactly. That's
yeah,
what I
yeah,
was trying
yeah,
to think of. Yeah, and that kind of makes it even cooler. Like I respect him for being able or being willing to give someone like that the opportunity to grab a card from him because he never lets those go. So
right.
that's pretty cool. So when we talk about set, if you're in a situation where someone owns an entire print run of a set, like that is automatic automatically, I think, going to place that set higher up on importance because those cards are just that much more limited. We have examples as well as sets that have a history inside of Marvel, masterpieces being, the flagship. They date all the way back to 92, one of the first Marvel card sets really to come out, but it's also masterpieces done by a artist that has significant history drawing Marvel characters, and it's original art, so that like it just checks all the boxes, a masterpiece set, and you can see that continued today, and that's why masterpieces today still pull that premium in terms of value, liquid value. So when we're looking at buying other cards from other sets, we should always be in our mind aligning that spend with what could we get from a set that's as prestigious as a masterpieces set, because that is where the bar should be set and is, and everything else should fall in line based off that top tier Marvel masterpiece set, at least in my mind. So then the other things I would look at is history of the set overall, whether or not it's like Marvel Gems that has the exquisite cards. The exquisites have the tie into sports. So that's important. There's only been one set for Marvel that has exquisite cards. So that's important. It's not watered down. Those Marvel Gems sets had a pack price of like $600, and I think they're $1,000, $1,500 for a pack now. And the print run was incredibly limited. Do you know what the print run was? I think there's like 15,000 packs or something like that.
Yeah, no, I there was no characters or no cards that were of any interest in my collection during that set, so I didn't pay too
No
much attention
Juggernaut
to it.
in there,
No,
huh?
nothing, no, nothing at all. Yeah,
Okay. Um, Obviously there's a Deadpool. I think there's only like 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 packs. So super limited, especially compared to sets that are being released today, where we had Spider-Man Metal that I think was around 60,000. We had Platinum that was probably around 80,000. We had this new Marvel Masterpieces that has more inserts. So I don't know. I haven't really done the math yet on what that would look like. But as we get more and more modern sets, the print runs are getting larger and larger. We're having more and more inserts, increases the print run, which in my mind decreases the importance, the significance, the value that we should ultimately assign to those cards. Anything else you think of when it comes to importance of sets and how that equals value?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything that I would say there as well. I don't think there's really too much else to really touch on there as far as just having a good understanding of that, right, is also important.
Mhm.
Just the education and the like I would consider myself somebody who's pretty deep into understanding the hobby. I have to understand what different sets mean, like what the prices are going to be for various different sets, what the impact was for various different sets, just so that I can understand where to gauge the Juggernaut stuff at within those sets, right? So, it's just important to be educated on like what certain things are, right? It's the same with like people paying certain prices for like lower tiered characters in platinum versus like what the implications are of that, right? Like there's certain characters that shouldn't be going for $3,000, for example. Whenever like you know, uh, you have it just for no offense to anybody who's bought any of these character cards or anything like that. Just like if an Iron Man Marvel Platinum 1/1 sells for $5,000, that doesn't mean that Mole Man should sell for 2,500.
Right.
Right. Like you just have to be like cognizantly aware of like what all this stuff means.
Yeah.
And just be like, educating yourself using eBay, using 130 Point, looking at these various different sort of tool sets. Cause like, it's very easy for someone who just hops right in, that has no idea. That's like, oh, this is a 1/1. This other one's sold for this. It's like, you gotta like have at least a little bit of a backing and an education standpoint to be able to make those choices and decisions. So
100%. And that's the ultimate goal of this channel, right? Because that's what I made the mistake of doing. When I hopped in and started buying the cards that I had bought, I was overpaying. I didn't know how to value. I thought I was getting good deals when I wasn't. And I want to be able to talk with people like you, like myself, like others that have literally spent lots of time rummaging through sales data, thinking
yeah.
about why sets are important, how does that play into value, so that other people can hopefully evaluate those cards in a more effective way, let's say, whatever that effectiveness means for them. But there's an example that I found that I think was pretty interesting, and I might have deleted my. Nope, I think I still got it. Okay, yeah. So when we talk about importance of sets, I think one thing to consider, we see it right now, Topps new set. Typically, when a new set releases, people are paying up for those
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah.
There's this fear factor into it that they think this is my only chance. Plus, there's this like FOMO factor as well.
Yeah.
People are excited. Everyone's talking about it. They want to be in on the latest and greatest thing. They want to feel part of it. So they're paying more than what I would consider the liquid value of this card to be. And this is a perfect example where we have Topps. It's the first Topps Chrome set, so that's important. I mean, long term, looking back, the first Topps Chrome set is going to be more important and should hold more value than the second or third or fourth Topps Chrome set. So that's one thing to consider. But at the same time, it's a Black Wave refractor, which doesn't really have any significance in Marvel cards. I don't know how much significance it has in sports. I know the gold 1/1 superfractor, that's significant in sports, but then is the Black Wave refractor really as significant? Yeah. Probably not. But what's interesting is we see a perfect example here where someone's paying $1,400 for this Black Panther card. Now we look at a set that has true Marvel card significance in multiple ways. This is a Black Panther nameplate, also at a 10, but it's a Marvel Gems set. It's a Marvel Exquisite card, which is a massive insert, one of the biggest in sports. It's from 2016, and the print run was 10 to 15,000 compared to the print run of Topps, which is probably 60, 70, 80,000, who knows?
Yeah.
And you see that these time frames were within January to October, within 10 months of each other. This is a newer card, not as important for those reasons we just listed, not as significant, doesn't have as much history that should drive and be considered when placing value. But for some reason, people are paying, 25, 30% more for this card and letting this nameplate go for really reasonable price, all things considered.
Yeah, yeah. The release date there. So if you go back to the other the Black Wave of 10, the release date is a month after the set was released as well, which plays a big part in that too, I would say.
Okay, definitely. So if this same card sold today, it probably wouldn't pull this 1400.
Correct.
It'd
Yeah, yeah.
probably be closer to that, maybe 1800, maybe
Yeah,
even less, depending.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
But those are the types of things that we should be aware of and considering. Because for myself, I never want to be in a position where I'm paying $1,400 for a card and 3 months later it's worth 1,000 or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like that just kills me. That hurts my heart. I think we all to some degree care about value, some more than others.
Yeah.
But part of the collecting enjoyment experience for me is knowing that I'm entered a card at what I would call a liquid price point, that any day of the week I can put that card for sale, whether it's tomorrow, 6 months, 6 years from now, and at least get the money that I paid for it out of that card. That's one of, I guess, my goals in building my collection. Not everyone's the same way, but I think that just thinking through a lot of these things we talked about helps us better determine where and when we should spend our money when we're thinking about curating and building our collection.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
Awesome. I know maybe I got to jump in like 10 minutes. So
Sure.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
probably a good ending point, but I want to find another card and then let's go through like a research process, place a value on it, and then we can
Okay.
see how close we get to the ending of the auction. But
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if
maybe-
you yeah, I don't have anything. I've not really been looking. I haven't really what about this Ant-Man, by the way? I think that might be a decent one, yeah.
which one?
The Golden Treasures Ant-Man that we talked about earlier.
Oh,
PSA
yeah,
10.
yeah, yeah. That's it for sale right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It ends in a day too, so it's like a pretty good time window for like what we're the next time that we do this again, if it's the weekend or whatever. So
Okay. Yeah, dude, I think this could be a great example. So we're at 860 right now. So right off the bat, I'm gonna guess it's gonna end around 1500 without doing any research at all. Do you have an initial guess just based on what we
I'm gonna say
know?
I'm gonna say 1200. I'm gonna say 1200 myself. I just don't think there's not like a well-known Ant-Man collector. This is sort of like somebody who's like just into golden treasures or something along those lines, right? Which I think that
Mhm,
makes the market cap smaller, right? Whenever
mhm,
you don't have like a specific collector that could be after it, I think it lowers where it will actually end at. It does
mhm,
end at a peak time. I think Sunday, a
for
time where
sure.
a lot of people are available. I just don't see it jumping. I mean, 42 bids though. That's actually crazy. Actually,
Yeah,
42
let's
bids
take
is actually crazy.
so look at this. Um he's this is so did he put his max bid at 750 and then this guy came in at 800 or 850? How did this jump up to? So he must have came in, put his max bid at 850, then this 860 came in, which triggered his
Oh no,
max.
yeah. So what it was this guy. No, you can see it from here. So this guy with the M at the top, the 623 feedback, he
Mhm.
was putting in. So it was at this guy with the BC with this 11,000 feedback had his max bid at what appears to be like probably somewhere between 750 and 800, right? So this
Mhm.
guy was putting in bids, and then that guy was his max bid was auto defaulting as the
Yeah.
cap, right? So then he
Yeah.
finally found it at 800, and then put his max bid at 850, and then somebody else did the same thing, right? It's the same thing across the board there, right? Like that guy was the same situation. So
Yeah. Same thing with this six guy.
yeah. Which I
Um,
mean, if that guy's which that guy might be a shiller there, but if he is, he's like he's only shielded up to $100 so far. So
yeah, that's true. It looks like he might be because he's placing little bids down here as well, which is
yeah, yeah.
interesting. It doesn't really seem like. I mean, if he started bidding now, I'd be a little bit concerned,
Well,
but
yeah,
it
we'll have to
doesn't.
check it at the end, right? Well, that's something to note. We'll have to look at the end, right? Is like, I mean, I would
Yeah.
assume that this guy, if he was shilling it up a bit, though, he's satisfied. I mean, that Ant-Man card is like, that's for it to, if it gets 860, the guy should be happy with that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like, if it goes even higher, then it's going to be, anything at this stage for that guy should be like, if you were shilling it, I feel like it would be kind of risky for you to go to like try to like make a bid of 1,000 and hope that somebody, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's a weird spot with 42 bids though. I mean, it's weird. I mean, this card could go for, yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see where this ends at for sure. But I think this is a good one to choose.
I
I'd say
think so
1,200
too.
though.
Okay, so let's do a little more research. It is a 10, so that's going to put a premium on it. It
Yeah.
is the Golden Treasures. So that's a big time sports insert. This is the first set that has a big time Golden Treasure sports insert 101. And it's got the cover variant, which I think most people put a premium on the cover variant versus non-cover variant. Do you?
No, I think it's the other way around. I think the base was pulling.
Okay.
The base was pulling higher.
So
We can check
Marvel, Platinum, Golden Treasure. So from here, I would look at other comparable character comps to get an idea of where these are ending.
Yeah.
So Jubilee.
That's that's 92 platinum.
Oh, good call. Dang, we're gonna run.
Yeah, you'll see some of those, but I'll be able to recognize them pretty quick here. I know exactly what the. Those are 92. That's 92 platinum as well. That's Korvac though. He's pretty.
Yeah, he's low tier. He's as low tier gets. What about Mr. Fantastic? That's probably about equal, lower tier than Ant-Man. Okay.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, maybe on the same. I think Ant-Man would be a little bit more popular than Mr. Fantastic. I mean, he's had a movie, right? You know, Ant-Man's had a movie, right? So.
And he's probably a little more popular than
Hawkeye. I agree. Yeah.
Definitely, probably more popular than Drax. I mean, maybe
that Shadowcat is a steal there, actually. Too, I think that's crazy that went for that.
This,
especially on a Probstein auction at that. Those
true.
guys are super criminals. So like that's crazy that's
510, 700. Maybe we're already seeing the premium on the Ant-Man card because of the 10.
Yeah, probably so, right? Like, yeah, you could be right though. This is a cover variant for 1,000. Craven cover variant for 1,000 there. Keep scrolling down a bit here. Groot, that one went for 1,000. That's crazy that it went. It may have even went less. That's crazy if it did, but
that is, yeah, that's probably the most expensive Groot card ever sold.
Yeah, without question, I think.
That's out of 10.
Yeah, these are all going to be out of 10s now and stuff like that. But yeah, I just remember like in the beginning, like most people like the cover variants were going for a bit less than the.
Dude, this is a steal. Oh wait, that's 1 out of 10. That's the
Seismic. Yeah. That's the Seismic Gold. Yeah, not the 101.
Like, wow, it's a PSA 10. Let's see.
You're probably not going to run into any more there. We'd have to probably go to 130 point to see.
All right, let's check out 130 real quick here.
I would just type in Marvel Platinum Golden Treasure. That's all I would put in there.
Okay. $130 is the worst freaking site.
Yeah.
Marvel Platinum Golden Treasure. It's so clunky. It always takes forever to search anything. Come on. And I spelled golden wrong. Dang it.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Nothing. Sweet.
Oh, it's just they put Golden Treasure in the name of the box break. Wow, that's so annoying, actually.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
So, with the information,
but you could be right though. I mean, yeah, based on what we've got so far, though, the cover variants have been selling for higher more recently here. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Looks like it. Let's see if we can find anything on Terapeak. How do I get to?
It should be under research or product research. They don't call it Terapeak anymore. It's just called the research products. Yeah.
Marvel Platinum Golden Treasure. Average price $1K. All right, so Magneto 1300.
There's multiple Magneto cards in the set though as well.
Okay.
So Mystique there, the base 2500.
Wow. June. When did the set come out?
Let's see. That one was one of the earlier ones that sold. I remember that. Give me 1 second here. I'll see. I was actually making a list of all the 101s that sold at one point in time.
Oh, really?
Um,
That'd be interesting. Do you have that list?
It's in the Discord somewhere. It's in the Spidey Hits Discord. It was in there where I was doing it at.
Oh, interesting.
March 13th is the release date.
March 13th. Okay, so this was right after it came out. That's a seemingly pretty good price.
Yeah, I agree. I think that same card actually is the one that guy. I can't see the image there. Remember that guy? He paid like 5,000 for one. Remember that?
Oh, I have heard about this.
And then sold it, and then tried. And like I can't remember. He graded it, got a PSA 10, and then he like tried to flip it. I think.
Yeah, someone was telling me about that.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four variant 900. This is April, so month after. Same month after. Are there any recent sales? December 1100 for Archangel.
Is that the hold on? Is that the that's the 92? That's not.
Yeah.
Dustin bought that. Yeah, it's the.
Dang it. January, so that's 92 also. Hobgoblin. That's also. That's platinum. $1,000, dude.
For Fin Fang Foom, yeah.
That's crazy.
1,700 for Mephisto there too, cover variant.
Electric cover, 1,200.
Thing 1,600 there.
Thing 1,600. This was September too. Wow. And a 10. This might be the best comp then, really. Thing and Ant-Man probably pretty similar.
Yeah.
Malekith.
Well, there's the Ant-Man Golden Treasure non-cover variant there for 1,525, just a bit below there.
Is that
two more down, or sorry, 3 more down, 1 more down. Sorry. There you go. There's the. Oh wait, that's the same card.
It is, yeah. 15 in June, and it's not a 10.
And they graded it. Oh, interesting. So this is a flip here then. This is interesting. This is more interesting now then, since it's
Dude, so I wonder if we're going to see that shill bidder come back if it doesn't hit 15.
Yeah, I would say so, honestly.
So what's going to happen here with 4.6, 4.5? Interesting. All right, so knowing this, what are you valuing this at?
I still think it goes for 12. I think it still gets 12. I'll be interested to see if it gets the, because it's interesting. We'll have to see if it ends and if it actually gets paid. If it's less, right? That's going to be the big kicker there. There's your Neymar cover variant Golden Treasure that Miles had to pay $2,000.80 for, or $2,080 for.
Brutal.
Should have bought it.
Yes,
look at that Annihilus sale there. Like, make that make sense.
Oh gosh, who bought that? Any idea?
Steve Warburg bought it.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, I think that he was gonna like go super hard for a lot of these 1-of-1s here, and then change his mind. I think is what actually happened in the end. But
yeah, I see.
That Shadowcat is a steal there though. 676 for Shadowcat. I feel like she's like a decent tiered character, like not super high tiered, but like I feel like I probably would have paid that for that card, honestly.
My favorite part about the card is Nightcrawler.
Yeah, Nightcrawler. Yeah.
That's sweet, and it's got like this cathedral thing in the background.
Yeah.
I wonder, is that it? Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be it probably.
Is this an Iron Man 2000?
Yeah.
That's
92.
92. Craven.
Variant cover. 1,090. Kingpin 2,300 down there.
Wow.
There is a collector though for him now, so that's where that came from there.
This was right after a month after the set release too.
Yeah.
Man, that seems high.
Yeah, that's like that. That's like the FOMO, like the initial, like
Mm,
you know.
super
It
scroll.
sucks too because like in his position, right? If you're gonna collect Kingpin and like the set's hot and there's so many like cards that are selling for like crazy prices, like you almost feel like you have to buy it for that price to be able to. Because
Exactly.
like with 1-on-1s, it is different, right? You only have the one shot, really.
Yeah.
In most cases, you do only have the one shot. So
Yeah.
that's the other
No,
part of it
definitely.
for sure.
All right. So where are you locking in your guess at?
Yeah,
Considering
1200. I think it's going to go for less considering that there's not been as much. And we'll see. It may end and then it may not get paid out, right? That's the other thing. We have to we'll have
yeah,
to look and see on that. So
man. See, like if it was a 10, it probably wouldn't be at 860, or maybe it would end at 860.
right.
But
Whereas the
since
fact that
it's
it's a
a
10
10,
is yeah.
I think 12 is a good. So you said 12? You said
Yeah.
11? You said 12? I think 12 is good. I might go like 13 just because it's a 10.
Yeah.
But I think probably somewhere around there, 12, 13. I could see it going all the way up to 15 though, just again because it's a 10.
Yeah, it could. I mean, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what kind of premium that 10 brings. This is a
Mhm.
good card to be like studying too, right? Because like there's not a ton of PSA 10 golden treasures that are out there on the market. So
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's lock it in. You got 12. I'm going 13.
yeah.
We will reconvene post Sunday at 6:57 and see where I landed.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Cool, dude. Well, thanks for jumping in. Hopefully y'all got something out of this. If you don't like watching this stuff, I don't know, go watch Alone or something.
All right. Next time, dude. See you later. All right, bye.
Peace.